The Jealous Mother-in-Law. Chapter 1. The Young Bride. In the heart of the village of Olorunmalu, where the sun bathed the earth in golden hues, and the air smelled of fresh grass and earth, the villagers were in high spirits. The wedding of Olamide and Adebimp had arrived, and the entire village buzzed with excitement. The celebration stretched from dawn until dusk, with music, dancing, and feasting filling the air. Adebimp, a young woman of great beauty, had been chosen by Akinwale, the village's most promising farmer. She was graceful, kind-hearted, and adored by all who knew her. Her laugh was infectious, and her smile brought warmth to everyone around her. The villagers were eager to see the couple united in marriage, knowing that Akinwale, with his hard-working spirit, and Adebimp, with her gentle nature, would make the perfect pair. However, there was one woman who stood apart from the joyous crowd, her expression not one of happiness, but of quiet bitterness. Olamide, Akinwale's mother, watched the proceedings from a distance. Her face was taut, her lips pursed in a thin line as she observed the growing bond between her son and his bride. In her eyes, Adebimp was a stranger, someone who had come to take her son away from her. Olamide had raised Akinwale alone after his father passed away. She had been his sole caregiver, the center of his world. Over the years, their bond had grown so strong that no one could replace her in his heart. But now, a young woman had come into his life, a woman who could potentially shift his attention away from her, and that thought gnawed at Olamide's heart. As the night wore on and the villagers danced around the fire, Olamide stood silently under the shadows of the trees, her thoughts dark. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had lost something important, and she wasn't ready to give up her son so easily. That evening, when the guests retired to their homes, Olamide sat alone by her hut, the flickering flames of a small fire casting eerie shadows across her face. Her jealousy burned like a fire within her, and the more she thought about Adebimp, the more she felt an urge to protect her son from this woman. "I will not let her take him from me," Olamide muttered to herself. "I will ensure that she is never a threat." Driven by this intense jealousy, Olamide decided to seek the help of Ialode, the village's renowned healer. Ialode was known to possess powers that could influence fate and manipulate the forces of nature. People whispered that she could use dark magic to make things happen according to one's will, but such magic always came at a price. Nonetheless, Olamide was desperate. "I need her to suffer." Olamide spoke quietly as she approached the healer's home deep in the forest. "Make her sick, make her weak. Let her leave my son, so I can have him back." Ialode looked at her with a knowing gaze. "Are you sure, Olamide?" she asked, her voice filled with an unspoken warning. "Magic such as this has consequences. You cannot reverse it once it is done." Olamide's eyes flashed with determination. "I am willing to pay any price." Chapter 2. The Subtle Health Decline. In the days following the wedding, the villagers noticed a strange change in Adebimp. Her once vibrant energy seemed to fade, replaced by an unusual weariness that clung to her every step. She became pale, her cheeks hollow, and even the simplest chores left her exhausted. At first, Akinwale thought it was simply the toll of wedding preparations, the stress of starting a new life with his wife. But as the days passed, Adebimp's condition only worsened. She would wake up feeling drained, unable to summon the energy she once had. Her appetite dwindled, and she could barely muster the strength to leave their hut. Akinwale, worried and confused, did everything he could to help, but nothing seemed to ease her suffering. He sought out herbs from the village healers, hoping they would provide relief, but still, Adebimp grew weaker each day. One afternoon, as she sat by the baobab tree in their garden, Adebimp noticed Olamide walking toward her. The older woman had a basket of fruits in her hands, her face wearing a smile that seemed forced but friendly enough. "I brought you some fresh fruits, my daughter," Olamide said, offering the basket. "You need to eat well to regain your strength." Adebimp, though suspicious, took the fruits. She had been feeling unwell for days, and the kindness from her mother-in-law seemed genuine, though something about Olamide's demeanor felt off. She smiled faintly, thanking her. The fruit tasted bitter in her mouth, far more so than any she had ever eaten. Adebimp's stomach churned, and she set the basket aside. The nausea from eating the fruit only worsened, and she could feel the sickness creeping deeper within her. "Why does everything I eat make me feel sick?" she wondered aloud. She began to suspect that something more than a simple illness was at work. Her mind raced as she remembered the rumors of dark magic in the village, magic that could make people sick and manipulate their lives in ways that no one could understand. Olamide's eyes gleamed from the corner of her hut as she left, but Adebimp was already too ill to notice. It was then that the realization struck her. Olamide's sudden kindness, the way she had insisted she eat the fruit, felt like a subtle form of sorcery, deliberate and calculated. Chapter 3. The Shadow of Doubt. Adebimp lay on her bed, her body racked with exhaustion. It had been days since she had eaten properly, and the persistent sickness that plagued her made it difficult for her to focus on anything other than the dull ache in her body. Her mind wandered back to the strange events surrounding her illness. No matter what remedy she tried, the sickness would not lift. Something felt deeply wrong. Adebimp's suspicions had been growing ever since Olamide's visit with the strange fruit. At first, she had chalked it up to her own worries and paranoia, but now she could no longer ignore the gnawing feeling in her chest. She knew she had to do something, but what? Who could she trust? One evening, as Adebimp sat at the edge of their small home, looking at the sky painted in vibrant orange and purple hues, a figure appeared before her. It was an old woman, with skin dark and weathered like the bark of an ancient tree, her eyes sharp and knowing. "Are you well, my child?" the woman asked, her voice soft but carrying an undeniable weight. Adebimp blinked, startled. "Who are you?" "I am a Defilake, a wanderer in search of those who are troubled," the old woman replied. "I know what is troubling you, Adebimp. I have seen the shadow of a curse placed upon you." Adebimp's heart raced. A curse? But who would do such a thing? "The one who wants to see you broken. The one who is jealous of the love you share with her son," a Defilake said knowingly. "Your mother-in-law." Adebimp's breath caught in her throat. She had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed by a stranger sent a chill down her spine. Why would she do such a thing? Adebimp asked, her voice trembling. "Out of fear, child. Fear that you will take her son away, that he will love you more than he loves her. It is an ancient jealousy, one that many mothers in this land feel when their sons marry," a Defilake explained. "She has sought help from a powerful sorcerer. She has used magic to poison your spirit and drain your strength." Adebimp's mind raced, the gravity of the situation slowly sinking in. She had to act quickly. She couldn't allow Olamide to control her life and her marriage. A Defilake continued, "There is a way to undo the curse, but it will require great courage. You must confront your mother-in-law, challenge her magic with your own strength, and unearth the dark forces she has summoned." Adebimp nodded resolutely. She was terrified, but her love for Akinwale and her determination to save her marriage gave her strength. She would no longer cower in the face of Olamide's manipulations. "Thank you, a Defilake," she said, her voice filled with newfound conviction. "I will not let her destroy what I love." A Defilake smiled softly. "Good. Remember, a woman's heart is as strong as the roots of the trees. You, too, have strength within you." With those words, the old woman disappeared into the twilight, leaving Adebimp alone but empowered. The path ahead was uncertain, but she was ready to face the challenge. Chapter 4. The Gathering Storm. The days that followed Adebimp's encounter with the Defilake were filled with a sense of urgency. She knew she had to act quickly to save herself and her marriage, but the task ahead was daunting. Confronting Olamide was no small feat, especially considering the power the older woman held over her son. Adebimp, despite her fear, began to make plans. She spent hours in their small home, reading through old scrolls that spoke of ancient rituals and ways to counter dark magic. The words on the scrolls were difficult to understand, but she was determined to learn. Adebimp had always been a quick learner, and this time, it was a matter of survival. Meanwhile, Akinwale continued to be oblivious to the growing tension between his wife and his mother. He noticed Adebimp's weakness, of course, but he attributed it to stress and fatigue from the wedding. He was a kind man, deeply in love with his wife, but he could not see the invisible war that was being waged against her. Adebimp had not yet told him the truth, not wanting to burden him with the weight of her suspicions. But that would soon change. On the 7th day after Adebimp's meeting with Adephilake, she decided it was time to speak to Akinwale. She needed his support, not only as her husband, but as the person closest to Olamide. He was the key to breaking the curse and protecting their love. One evening, after Akinwale had finished working in the fields, Adebimp called him to sit by the fire with her. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and wood, and the flickering flames cast long shadows around them. Akinwale, Adebimp began, her voice soft yet steady, "There is something I need to tell you." He turned to her, his face filled with concern. "What is it, my love?" Adebimp hesitated for a moment, gathering her courage. "Your mother has placed a curse upon me. She is using dark magic to keep us apart." Akinwale's eyes widened in disbelief. "What are you saying?" "My mother." "Yes," Adebimp said. "She is afraid of losing you to me, and she has used magic to weaken me. I don't know how much longer I can bear it." Akinwale sat in stunned silence, his mind racing. He could hardly believe what he was hearing. His mother, the woman he trusted above all others, was capable of such evil? The thought was almost too much to bear. But Adebimp's gaze held his, steady and unwavering. "I need your help, Akinwale. You are the only one who can help me defeat her." For a long time, Akinwale remained silent, processing everything his wife had said. He was torn between the love for his mother and the deep devotion he had for his wife. Finally, he spoke. "Then we must confront her together," he said. "I will not let her destroy our love." Chapter 5. The Silent Confrontation. The night before Adebimp and Akinwale were to confront Olamide, the air was thick with tension. Adebimp's heart pounded in her chest, her thoughts swirling with both fear and determination. The day ahead would change everything, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for the battle that lay ahead. But one thing was certain, she couldn't let Olamide's dark magic tear her apart any longer. Akinwale sat beside her by the fire, his eyes fixed on the flames. He had not said much since Adebimp's confession. The weight of the revelation about his mother had shaken him deeply, and he had spent the rest of the evening in silence, lost in thought. His mind raced with questions. How could his mother, his own flesh and blood, be capable of such cruelty? "Adebimp," Akinwale said quietly, breaking the silence. "I still cannot believe what you've told me. My mother, the one who raised me, the one I trusted. How could she?" Adebimp reached out and placed a gentle hand on his arm, her voice soft but resolute. "I know, my love. This is not easy for either of us. But I have seen the signs. She has been doing this to me for months now. It is not just some sickness or bad luck. It is magic. Dark magic. I never suspected her of such evil," Akinwale admitted, his voice tinged with disbelief. "But I believe you, Adebimp. I trust you with my life, and I will not let her destroy our happiness." Adebimp smiled faintly, grateful for his support. "Tomorrow, we will confront her together. We will break this curse, Akinwale. We will fight for our love." He nodded slowly, though the uncertainty in his eyes was still apparent. "We will face her, and whatever happens, we will stand together." The night passed in uneasy silence as they both wrestled with their thoughts. The next day, they would go to Olamide's compound. They had no idea how the confrontation would unfold, but they knew it was the only way forward. Adebimp had prepared herself for a battle not only with Olamide but with her own doubts and fears. The morning sun rose slowly, casting a golden light over the village. It was a day like any other, yet to Adebimp and Akinwale, it felt as if the very earth beneath their feet was shifting. Today, they would face the woman who had been the source of so much pain and uncertainty in Adebimp's life. They set out early, walking together through the village. Adebimp's thoughts were a whirlwind, but she held Akinwale's hand tightly, drawing strength from his presence. The road to Olamide's home was a familiar one one that had always been a place of comfort and warmth in her heart. But today, it felt like a path to war. As they approached Olamide's compound, the familiar sights of the village seemed distant. The air grew heavy with anticipation. The walls of Olamide's home, once welcoming, now seemed imposing. Abimp's breath caught in her throat as they reached the front door. Akinwale squeezed her hand, offering a reassuring smile, though he, too, was feeling the weight of what was to come. With a deep breath, Abimp knocked on the door. Chapter 6: The Confrontation. The door creaked open, and Olamide stood before them, her face an unreadable mask. Abimp's heart raced, but she held her ground. This was the moment she had been dreading and anticipating since she first felt the darkness creeping into her life. Olamide's sharp gaze swept over Abimp and Akinwale, a flicker of surprise passing through her eyes, but her features remained impassive. She was dressed in her usual elegant attire, her silver jewelry gleaming in the soft sunlight. She looked every bit the powerful matriarch of the family, too poised, too perfect. "What brings you here, Abimp, Akinwale?" she asked, her voice smooth but laced with a hint of something unreadable. "Is everything well?" Abimp stood straighter, her eyes never leaving Olamide's. She had come this far. She could not falter now. "We need to talk, Mother," Abimp said firmly, using the word she had never felt fully comfortable saying, but now felt necessary. "We know what you've been doing. We know about the magic, the curses you've placed on me. It's enough." Olamide's eyes flashed with surprise, but her lips remained in a tight, controlled line. She took a step back, crossing her arms over her chest. "What are you talking about?" Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "Magic? Curses? I don't know what you're accusing me of, but I assure you, this is all nonsense." Abimp took a step forward, her voice rising with a fire of truth. "Don't lie to me, Olamide. I've felt it. The coldness, the shadow that lingers over me, the sickness that has plagued me, the strange accidents, the constant misfortune. And I know it's you. Your magic has caused it all." Akinwale, who had been silent until now, stepped closer to Abimp, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "Mother," he said, his voice steady but heavy with emotion, "I never imagined you capable of such things. But Abimp has shown me the truth. We cannot let this continue." Olamide's eyes flickered with something darker, but the mask of composure never wavered. She took a deep breath and let out a soft laugh, almost as if she were humoring them. "You think you understand? You think you know what's best for our families?" Her voice hardened as she spoke, the warmth in it gone. Abimp felt a chill in the air, as if the very atmosphere around them had shifted. She glanced at Akinwale, who seemed to sense the change as well. The tension was palpable, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to tremble with unspoken power. Abimp knew that Olamide was not going to make this easy. "I have watched you, Abimp," Olamide continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I have seen how you've changed, how you've made my son forget the traditions we hold dear. You're not the woman I envisioned for him. I wanted someone who could bring honor to our family, not someone who would weaken us." Abimp's heart ached at Olamide's words, but she refused to let them break her. "You're wrong, Olamide. I love your son. I have done everything I could to be a good wife. But your jealousy, your hatred, has poisoned everything. It's not me who has weakened this family. It's you." Olamide's eyes darkened with fury, and the air seemed to crackle with the weight of her anger. "You think you can challenge me, little girl?" she hissed. "I have spent years protecting this family, guiding it, making sure it stays strong. You, with your simple heart and naive love, think you can come here and change everything?" Abimp stood her ground, the fire of her love for Akinwale and her determination to break free from Olamide's control surging within her. "Yes, I do," she said, her voice strong. "I will not be your pawn, Olamide. I will not be the woman you use for your selfish needs." For the first time, Olamide faltered. The walls around her seemed to crack, but she quickly regained her composure, her eyes narrowing with a dangerous gleam. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, Abimp," she warned, her tone cold as ice. "But I will show you." Before Adbimp could react, Olamide raised her hand, and the ground beneath them seemed to tremble with the power of her magic. The air grew thick and oppressive, as if the very earth itself was rebelling. Adbimp's breath caught in her throat, but she stood firm, her heart resolute. "I won't be afraid of you anymore, Olamide," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "Whatever magic you wield, I will break it. I will not let you control my life any longer." Olamide's lips curled into a sly smile. "We shall see, daughter-in-law. We shall see." Chapter 7. The Ancestral Blessings. The room grew cold, and the shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, swirling in the corners like living creatures. Adbimp looked around, confused and frightened. She could hear the distant rustling of leaves, but it wasn't the wind. It felt like the voices of countless spirits, the ancient ancestors of her people, were gathering. Olamide's face twisted with recognition and fear. "You dare? You think the ancestors will save you?" she hissed, her eyes flashing with the rage of a woman pushed to her limit. "I have been the protector of our family for years. No one can defeat me." But the voice was unrelenting. "You have broken the sacred bond, Olamide. You have used the powers of darkness, and you have forgotten the old ways. The balance must be restored." Suddenly, a faint glow began to radiate from the earth beneath their feet. The wind picked up again, this time with a gentler touch. Adbimp could feel it, a presence, ancient and wise, standing beside her. She wasn't alone. The ancestors were with her. Olamide stumbled back, as if the air itself were choking her, her face contorted in disbelief. "No," she screamed. "I have done everything for this family. I protected it from harm." The voice grew stronger. "You protected it, yes, but at what cost? You have harmed your own blood, your own child, to fulfill your selfish desires. And now, the balance will be restored." Adbimp closed her eyes, offering a prayer in her heart. She did not know how, but she could feel the magic of the ancestors surrounding her, empowering her to fight back. The air around Olamide crackled with the energy of the confrontation. For the first time, Olamide's composed mask faltered as the weight of the ancestors' judgment bore down upon her. It was as though every lie she had ever told, every act of cruelty, was being revealed before her, and she could not escape the truth. Adbimp felt the warmth of her ancestors' presence inside her, guiding her strength. Her voice rang out, firm and clear. "Olamide, you will no longer control us. Your magic is broken. The love I share with your son is stronger than any curse. You cannot keep us apart." Olamide's eyes widened in horror as the power of the ancestors continued to swell, encircling her like a tightening noose. Her mouth opened, but no words came. For the first time in years, she felt powerless. The ancestors had spoken, and the darkness that had clouded their world began to recede. When the light finally faded, Olamide was gone. Only the faint echo of her screams lingered in the air, fading into nothingness. Adbimp sank to her knees, the weight of the moment overwhelming her. She had done it. They had done it. The ancestors had won. A kinwhale knelt beside her, taking her hand in his. "You did it. You broke the curse," he whispered, awe in his voice. Adbimp looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of relief and joy. "We did it," she said softly. "We are free." Chapter 9. A New Beginning. With the final defeat of Olamide, the heavy darkness that had clouded the land for so long began to lift. The village, once shrouded in tension and fear, now felt as though it had been reborn. The trees stood taller, the air fresher, and the people seemed to breathe more freely. Adbimp could feel the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, as if the land itself was rejoicing in the return of balance. As she and a kinwhale made their way back to the village, the elders, who had been watching from a distance, approached them. Their faces were solemn, but their eyes were filled with gratitude. The weight of the ancient magic, which had been disturbed by Olamide's selfishness, had now been restored to its rightful place, and the elders knew that the future of the village had been secured. As the sun set, casting its golden light over the village, Adbimp turned to Akinwale. Their eyes met, and in that moment, all the struggles, the pain, and the uncertainty melted away. They had made it through together, and now they could finally look forward to a future of peace. Adbimp smiled softly. "We are free," she whispered. Akinwale nodded, pulling her into his arms. "Together, we can face anything." The village celebrated late into the night, their songs and dances echoing through the trees, reaching the heavens. Adbimp knew that the story of her journey would be told for generations to come, a tale of love, strength, and the power of the ancestors. And so, a new chapter began, one filled with hope, healing, and the promise of a bright future for all. If you liked this tales of true love and trust, do like, share, and subscribe to my channel Drumbeats and Folklore for more such heartwarming tales. Do comment below your experiences, what you found relatable. Thanks for watching.